In this lesson we will start drawing a soaring eagle. First, let's cut and shape it now. Let's look at its body. You can also treat it as A for now. This ellipse is based on the direction of the ellipse this bird is worth looking at. The position of its head is roughly here. This spot is on top of the old shell. We use this location to determine the ellipse and its two legs. Let's see the approximate direction of its legs. The legs are here. Its legs are ordinary, like those of an eagle flying into flight. It is in two directions. It is here. Let's first find the spot here. This point is here. The initial point of this leg should be here, but here we cannot see it. So this leg, it is heading in this direction. This leg is heading in this direction, but this leg needs to be a bit longer. This leg should be a bit shorter. What about its body after that? We just want its wings. This is its head. It heads back. From now on, after is this place just like us humans. Neck. It's where its neck connects to its wings. First, let's define the range of this wing. Hold it for a moment, and this one is a bit longer, a bit shorter. Then at the end it gets shorter and shorter. Tail, we can roughly say you need to prepare to paint for it. The big head is like spreading it out one by one, centered on this tail and the back of this, just like a fan. Then this wing unfolds the feather, then like this spread out, then it reaches the time below. Just start and go along from now on. It is such a structure front with this prototype. All start from it, then spread out. After spreading out, this is a skeletal structure of a bird. What about its bones? What about bird bones? This is the point. Then on the front of this top there's an exit out, then it looks like this. So let's go hook beak, then this side. Alright, let's start this from its head. Find out this detail first. Let's start with the mouth. As for the mouth, the eagle's eyes are slightly downward at the top of the eye, then below one half. Because when we look at the eyeballs facing forward, there's more blank space behind them. Like this. Isn't this feather on the neck? Look, it's one feather at a time. But change should not be too regular size, length, just a little bit of it. You can also use this first and directly hook with this line. Then it goes to the very bottom part of the leg. Draw it out, including this place, the tail and the back. This detail needs to be brought to life, and this place is also layer by layer. Then come down. After coming down, the leg comes out from here. Draw the legs too thick, not too thin. The eagle's legs are very strong and powerful. Its legs are here, so tuck it in a bit. This is the feather, and this paw is here. This paw is divided into three parts. After finishing this, let's draw the wings. It's the relationship between the wings and the body. From the bottom to the bottom, it gets bigger and bigger, and then up to the top, it gets smaller and smaller. After finishing this small section, the area behind here starts to begin. See, here we gradually have one regularity, and these wings we do. After finding this part, let's break it down further. Over here, these wings. First, the outermost side is a bit longer than the second one. To shorten it further, it roughly follows this pattern. Alright, this wing is done. Let's draw again and look at this side of the wing. Below here is also the lower part. This place, because it's on the side, it's very sideways, so it might make it a bit blurry, and we'll make the wings a bit more void. And this one starts from here. The gap in the middle also extends in. This is the wing. After the wings, then the tail. Pay attention to this curvature, this tail, this curvature, and like this, the old yin draft is basically done. Alright, let's start drawing this in depth. We draw this detail with a fountain pen, and we use this detail from it. The head starts with it. Let's first nail down the position for the upper eyelid. the eye is pretty important. Back here you can gently dot to smooth things out. Then for this area we'll go downwards. Add a few strokes on top, and at this point use the pencil lightly. Don't press too hard. Alright, once here, we'll reconfirm the line between the lips. Make sure to define where the lips meet. It's also right below the eyes. Make sure this connection is clear and distinct. Now, at this point, move in this direction, then keep turning until the back of the head. This part should be a bit more indistinct, not too solid like the claw. Pay attention to the variation in line. Earlier, our pencil might not have varied much, but with the ink pen for curves, ensure there's variation. Don't use indistinct sweeping lines, and avoid using very square ones solid from start to finish. It should be sharp at both ends. And that's done. Now we look at this wing, specifically at its connection. Here there's no clear turning line, it's staggered because of the feathers. The feathers are getting shorter, so give it a slight wobble and use hatching to accentuate the corner. Use broken lines to create the fish scale texture. For the feathers on this wing, aim to draw them in as much detail as possible. The wing on the other side can be less defined because it's in the foreground. It's a relatively important part of the picture, so we should draw it with more precision. Don't draw the lines too long or even just use dots. The arrangement is important. You don't need to distinctly draw every feather's shape. It's okay if it's a bit vague, just a few clear feathers at the forefront are enough. Then let's extend this long feather from here to here, making it slightly longer. So for this one, you see we could just draw one straight line, but it might not look that great. But instead we'll use these broken lines like before. You see, when the hair is long and a bit thick, even though we're using short lines for the hair, we need to make them very short and dense. That way we ensure the edges are nice and neat. Take a look at this group of feathers. It's slightly indented in the middle, then it rises a bit. Inside we need to find shapes like these. Some feathers might even have little notches like this. Let's take another look over here at these wings. The wings also start from here, but the lines are also done in segments using a more blurred line style. Then at this point it takes a turn heading downwards because it's been drawn too long. It turns here and a sharp tip starts to appear. Then up here there are some feathers first. Use dashed lines to connect the edges. Then up here there are some feather barbs that need to intercross, with one in the middle and another in the middle. Let's look at this. Up here we have a row of short feathers. This one goes here, this one's just a bit shorter, starting to tuck it inward. This one too, its curve starts going this way, and then it goes that way. You see, sometimes we can help it find a flow like this. Just make these feathers a bit longer like this, a bit of a flow from this side, this wing we've basically got finished. So let's look at this tail from both sides, and this is the middle line, draw it lightly. Then this, use short lines, no middle line for the claw, move down a bit. With this curve its claws usually get a bit thicker towards the front. Inside there's a connection, then the claw joint at the back, it's a bit blurry and not very clear. At this spot where the tail connects, darker, denser fur on the body here, I'll define it. We've basically finished the main shaping, the big structure and shaping, we've finished the form. Once done, we'll delve into details, some fluff, light shadow, and textures, starting with the head while drawing the head. Remember to leave some white space. Its head is white, so while drawing, don't forget to constantly adjust the image. Don't make it too heavy. Remember this, because you might forget as you draw. Then see this side, it's the bright side, and below might be a bit darker. We can do one layer of hatching, but don't make it very dark. Be careful not to overdraw this circular area. Leave enough of its white fur, then use hatching to press it down for contrast with the white feathers. At this spot, refine the swept out sharp parts of the feathers. Make sure to draw it neatly. Then extend this line downwards to create a transition. And if it's not pure white, cover it with another layer, a light grey layer. See, draw it like this as one piece, and then draw another piece from here. Make the middle part long and taper the sides downwards. Alright, this leg is done. Now let's work on its fluffiness here. Add a bit more fluff here. The lines overall should be arranged based on this foundation. Then draw this side as well. It's the same here. When drawing the lines for each layer, leave some edges out, because it starts short, then gets longer and longer, and then the back feathers get shorter. This part is pressed down to contrast and stand out against the body, making it clearly distinguished. For its back, highlight the white part to make it pop. For the wings, use short lines, then arrange them more densely, drawing them a bit darker to press them down. But you must try to arrange these lines to emulate fish scales as closely as possible. Below this, use thin lines to transition and deepen areas that need to be sharp and defined. Alright, now that the body is done, let's look at its claws. For the claws, we'll use a small semicircle and make sure to reserve the highlight properly. Then for the highlights, make sure to leave them clearly visible. Now let's look at its beak. We also need to refine the beak. Look here, draw a sharp pointed line for the beak. Then we notice this area is very fine and dense. Alright, from here, since there's this sense of lighting involved, we analyzed earlier that this side is heavier. Look, for this type of line arrangement, try to make it heavy from the front and light at the very end. Draw to achieve that fish feather glossy texture. Draw a line along this edge. After drawing this line, we follow along here to arrange properly. Towards this side, the front should be arranged very deep. This way, there is a transition from here to here. If the transition still wants to clearly give this place to it, then when you see this spot, start transitioning. Now, let's see this place. Each floor and the top floor. Approaching this spot, we can make it a bit heavier. At this point, we can leave a bit of the edge. Let's deepen this further. Compare it with the fish hair below. Okay, let's start from here, the wing at the back, the dark part. So we need to make it very dark. Compare the head, and the top is a bit shallower. We draw this kind of fish scale feeling. Let's continue drawing the wings downward, and for the wings, just follow the direction downward. Let's draw its tail again. The tail is a lighter color, and here we pay attention to the part that comes out from behind the tail. You must cut it along with this part, cut it into a cut to lock it down, then throw out the tail behind. You must draw light, not heavy, because no matter how heavy it is, it's still a light colored fish feather. You can't paint it like the one above, which feels pretty similar. If you can't separate the two lines, then when drawing this, you need to pay attention. You must have this one. See, when drawing this kind of line, we press down very hard in some places, leave the middle blank at the edge, and then lean on this half. When you get inside, it's the inner part of the place, so it's a transformation. Let's look at this. Because this line in the middle is raised and raised, it's light shining from here, so it will project details. So this side looks like this. Behind this is a dark area without lighting, so it's the junction between it and this place. If the contrast isn't enough, then add a boost, compare and pull it apart. Then let's take a look. The whole thing isn't enough because the whole thing is dark. But first we started out just to find it. The texture can now be made as a whole. Just go through the whole thing once. Okay, that's basically it. That's it. It ended.